Shedeur Sanders just pulled off what might be one of the wildest rookie moves in NFL history. And by wild, I mean the kind of thing that makes sports talk radio hosts foam at the mouth and sends rival fans into a full meltdown on social media. Fresh off absolutely dismantling the Carolina Panthers with performance, so clean it might as well have come with a no-wrinkles guarantee. Sanders walked into the post-game tunnel and basically walked out with $250 million. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. Yes, you heard that right. A $250 million extension locked, signed, sealed, and delivered by the Cleveland Browns like they were ordering express shipping on the franchise's future. And the haters? Oh, they're absolutely fuming. Let's be real. This doesn't happen. Rookies don't get generational money before their first jersey has even finished selling out. But Shedeur Sanders is apparently not rookies. He's his own category, a category where a single game can trigger the owner to throw NFL contract history out the window and say, "We're doing this now." And not just any game. Sanders went 24 for 31, racked up 3 touchdowns, and played with the kind of composure that makes defensive coordinators start rethinking their life choices. He didn't just win, he commanded. You could see it in the way the offensive line trusted his reads, the way his receivers ran their routes like they already knew the ball would be exactly where it needed to be, and the way Panthers defenders started looking like they were just trying to get out of the stadium without being turned into another highlight clip. The Browns, of course, wasted no time. Owner Jimmy Haslam apparently decided he'd seen enough to override his own front office. By the way, word is the analytics guys and some execs were saying, "Hey, let's give another few games." But Haslam went full poker table mode and shoved all his chips into the middle. And you know what? That tells you 2 things. 1, Sanders isn't just a quarterback. He's the kind of guy who can bend the franchise hierarchy in his favor. And 2, Cleveland is absolutely terrified of losing him, even though, again, he just got here. Now, if you're wondering how Sanders pulled this off, it's not just about the numbers. Sure, the stat line was crisp, but the NFL is full of guys who have one hot game and then fade into backup quarterback oblivion. What makes this different is how Sanders is already playing like a 5-year veteran. He diagnoses defenses at the line of scrimmage like he's reading the morning paper, adjusts protections without panic, and never lets the moment get too big. That's the kind of thing you can't fake. That's the kind of thing that makes veteran teammates go, "All right, maybe the kid's the real deal." And speaking of teammates, let's talk about the elephant in the locker room. Because as much as this is a fairy tale headline, it's not all rainbows and touchdown dances behind the scenes. Some guys are, let's say, less than thrilled about the whole thing. You can't exactly blame them. Imagine grinding through years of short contracts, team options, and prove-it deals, and then watching a rookie waltz in and cash out before he's even memorized everyone's name. Word is there have been some side eyes, maybe even a few snarky remarks in the locker room. That's the tricky part, because money changes dynamics. And $250 million changes them permanently. But Shadour, for his part, doesn't seem fazed. If anything, he's doubling down. The Browns' coaching staff is already tailoring parts of the playbook around him, setting up specialized sessions to sharpen his strengths, and basically treating him like the centerpiece of a long-term chess match. That's great for the future, but it's also causing a little friction. When you start customizing an entire offense around one guy, you risk alienating the rest of the roster, especially veterans who might be feeling their roles shrink. Still, if you ask the experts, they'll tell you this was impulsive. The Browns supposedly ran every metric imaginable on Sanders, not just the ones you see in the box score. Leadership metrics, consistency ratings, performance under pressure, and probably some algorithm that measures how photogenic he looks in slow-mo replays. And the data was screaming, this guy isn't normal. They're betting that locking him up now, even at an unprecedented price, is better than letting him play his way into an even more insane market value later. And honestly, they're probably right. Because if Sanders keeps playing like he did against the Panthers, $250 million might actually look like a bargain in a couple of years. The real question is whether the Browns just bought themselves a Super Bowl window or set themselves up for one of the most expensive, what were we thinking, moments in league history. This isn't the NBA where you can pivot around one superstar. NFL success is a fragile, interconnected mess of coaching, chemistry, and depth. You can have the best quarterback in the world, but if the defense folds or the O-line forgets how to block, it's over. And you better believe rival teams are already sharpening their knives. The second that deal dropped, you could almost hear the groans from other front offices. Because now every promising young quarterback is going to point at Sanders and say, if he got it, I want it too. This might just reset the market in a way that makes owners sweat through their suits. But let's be real. This is also kind of a PR flex for Cleveland. This is a franchise that hasn't exactly been synonymous with stability or long-term vision. Making a move like this sends a very loud, very clear message. We're done playing small ball. We're going all in. And that's the kind of message that gets fans hyped and haters pressed. Even if you're not a Browns fan, you have to admit there's something intoxicating about watching a team swing this big. And it's even more fun when it drives the NFL commentariat into chaos. Already, former players are lining up with takes ranging from "this is the dumbest move I've ever seen" to "this is the smartest thing Cleveland's done in 30 years. And both camps might be right, depending on how this plays out. If Sanders keeps winning, Haslam's going to look like a visionary. If he flops, this deal will go down as a cautionary tale in every sports business course for the next decade. In the meantime, Sanders isn't acting like a guy weighed down by a mega deal. He's carrying himself with the same calm, calculated demeanor he showed on the field. Like the kind of person who just casually signs away $250 million and then gets back to film study like nothing happened. That's either incredible maturity or the most impressive poker face in sports. And for all the noise, there's no denying the electricity he's brought to Cleveland. Fans are already daydreaming about playoff runs. Merchandise is flying off shelves, and the city suddenly feels like it's sitting on the edge of a new era. Whether that era is glory or heartbreak is anyone's guess, but you can't say it's boring. So here we are. One game, one rookie, one record-breaking deal, an entire league buzzing. The Browns just bet the farm on Shedeur Sanders, and no matter how you feel about it, you have to admit, it's going to be one hell of a ride. Shedeur Sanders just walked into the NFL, looked around, and apparently decided he didn't have time for the usual rookie hazing phase. One game into what's supposed to be his long learning curve, he's already holding one of the richest contracts in league history. $250 million. Courtesy of the Cleveland Browns, who apparently skipped over due diligence and went straight to throw the vault at him before someone else does. It wasn't just a good game that set this off. It was a kind of debut performance that feels like a movie montage. Against the Carolina Panthers, Sanders wasn't just completing passes. He was orchestrating the game like he'd been scripting NFL wins for years. 24 completions on 31 attempts, 3 touchdowns, and a level of calm that had the Browns sideline, looking like they'd accidentally signed a Pro Bowl veteran who'd been hiding in college this whole time. Fans were celebrating. Analysts were scrambling for superlatives. And somewhere in the owner's box, Jimmy Haslam was already plotting a future with Sanders as the undisputed face of the franchise. And here's the thing. This wasn't a decision made in some champagne-soaked post-game euphoria. Haslam didn't just see a rookie torch a defense and impulsively slide him a pen and contract in the locker room, though that's basically how fast it happened. This was a culmination of months of scouting, endless analytics, and the kind of behind-the-scenes debates that probably made the Browns' front office feel like they were running a presidential campaign. The conservative voices in the room were saying the same thing they always say. Let's give a season. Let him prove it. Don't set the market on fire just to make a statement. But Haslam went the other way. He overruled them, and by doing so, sent the NFL world a message. Shedeur Sanders isn't just the future. He's the now. From a football standpoint, you can see why they're smitten. Sanders has that intangible mix of poise, field vision, and command that makes everyone else move in sync with him. He's diagnosing blitz packages before the ball's even snapped. He's adjusting protections like he's running a clinic. He's hitting receivers in stride with throws that thread the needle so perfectly you wonder the football has GPS installed. Even in the huddle, his leadership is obvious. Teammates listen, and not just the young guys trying to make the roster, but the vets too. There's a confidence there that doesn't look borrowed or forced. But here's the messy part, because in sports, there's always a messy part. You can't drop $250 million into one player's bank account without shaking up the locker room dynamic. Some players, especially those grinding through shorter contracts or dealing with years of injury battles, are quietly questioning the timing. They're asking themselves if this was more about hype than substance, more about headlines and long-term stability. And those whispers, they don't just stay whispers forever. Money changes relationships, and in a sport where unity is the invisible glue that holds everything together, a few cracks can spread fast. The Browns coaching staff is clearly aware of this because they've already started fine-tuning their approach. Specialized training packages are being built around Sanders' strengths, custom plays, modified schemes, all designed to let him take over games. It's smart football strategy, but it also means certain veterans are being moved into smaller roles, which is another potential source of friction. Still, that's the gamble Cleveland is taking, that the talent and leadership Sanders brings will outweigh any growing pains or bruised egos. And make no mistake, this is a gamble. Rookie deals like this don't just rewrite the rules. They set new precedents. Every promising young quarterback in the league just got a new benchmark to aim for, and you can bet agents are already preparing their "if Sanders got it, so should my client" speeches. Rival front offices aren't just annoyed, they're panicked. The quarterback market was already spiraling upward, but this move just hit the fast-forward button. And from the Browns' perspective, the clock is now ticking. They've essentially locked themselves into a 5 to 10-year plan where Sanders is the centerpiece. If it works, they'll look like geniuses who outmaneuver the entire league. If it doesn't, they'll be remembered for blowing up the salary structure over a single hot start. But that's part why fans are so fired up about this. Cleveland has been searching for stability at quarterback for decades, cycling through draft picks, free agents, and maybe this is a guy experiments that always ended in heartbreak. Sanders is different. He's young, he's composed, and he carries himself with the kind of confidence that makes the idea of a franchise quarterback seem less like a myth. And when you've been starved for that kind of stability, you take the leap. From a PR standpoint, the move is pure adrenaline. It says to the fans, we're not waiting around for success to maybe happen. We're taking it now. It says to the rest of the league, you can circle your calendar for our games because we're going to be a problem. And it says to Sanders, we believe in you so much, we're willing to break every unwritten rule about rookie contracts to prove it. Still, the narrative is already splitting into two camps. On one side, you have the believers, people saying this is the boldest, smartest move the Browns have ever made, the kind of decision that could change the trajectory of the entire franchise. On the other side, you have the skeptics, those warning that we've seen can't-miss rookies before, and more than a few of them fizzle when defenses figure them out. The truth is, both sides have a point. Football history is littered with phenoms who burned bright and then vanished. But there are also those rare cases where the early flashes were just a beginning. Sanders has all the tools to be one of the rare ones. His mental processing speed is already elite. He's comfortable in high-pressure moments, and he has that mix of humility and swagger that lets him own the spotlight without being swallowed by it. It's a rare balance, and if he can keep it, the Browns might just secure the kind of long-term success teams dream about. Meanwhile, the rest of the NFL is watching, and not just watching, but taking notes. The ripple effect of this contract is going to be felt in draft rooms, contract negotiations, and salary cap spreadsheets for years. It's going to fuel debates on sports networks every morning and probably spark more than a few heated arguments in barbershops and online forums. And as for Sanders, he seems completely unbothered. While the media spins and the critics dissect every detail, he's reportedly already back in the film room, studying, preparing, and doing the exact same work that got him here. That's either a sign of remarkable focus or the calm of someone who knows he can handle whatever comes next. Either way, it's bad news for defenses, because if this is what he can do in his first game before the playbook is even fully customized for him, what's it going to look like when he's fully integrated into the system? The Browns are betting the answer to that question is unstoppable. And right now, it's hard to argue they're wrong. There's something almost cinematic about the way this whole Shedeur Sanders situation has unfolded. Think about it. The Browns, a team notorious for a quarterback turnover that could fill an entire Where They Now documentary, suddenly finds themselves in the middle of an NFL fairy tale. Except instead of slow, careful build toward success, they've basically skipped to the climax scene and handed their rookie quarterback the keys to the kingdom plus $250 million in guaranteed trust. No probation period, no earn your stripes timeline, just straight into the role of franchise savior. And while that's thrilling, it's also a little terrifying. For decades, Cleveland's quarterback position has been a revolving door, a parade of hopefuls who either got swallowed by the pressure or simply didn't have the juice to last. Fans have seen this movie before, but this time feels different. Not because the plot has changed yet, but because of the sheer audacity of the gamble. When Sanders took the field against the Panthers, you could already see why the Browns were willing to push all their chips forward. It wasn't just a 24 of 31 accuracy or the 3 touchdowns. It was how he moved through the game like he was conducting an orchestra. The offense responded to him. Every audible, every read, every sideline conversation had the calm precision of a guy who wasn't supposed to be rattled by anything. And when you've been stuck watching quarterbacks flinch under pressure for years, that's intoxicating. The fan base felt it. The locker room felt it. And apparently Jimmy Haslam felt it so much he decided waiting even a week to lock him up would be too risky. That urgency tells you something. They're convinced Sanders isn't just going to be good. He's going to be the guy. But in sports, the guy comes with a weight that can crush even the most talented players. The contract isn't just a payday. It's a public proclamation. Every game from here on out isn't just about winning or losing. It's about proving that $250 million belief wasn't misplaced. And it's not like the NFL is a forgiving place for rookies with massive contracts. The moment word got out about the deal, defensive coordinators across the league probably started sketching up every exotic blitz package in their playbook just to see if they could rattle him. The honeymoon phase might be sweet, but it's short-lived. Sanders now has a target on his back, and it's painted in gold leaf. The Browns aren't just betting on talent. They're betting on temperament. The analytics guys can run all the numbers they want. But a deal like this ultimately comes down to the question, does he have the mental durability to shoulder everything that's about to come his way? The early signs point to yes. Sanders has shown a level of maturity that makes you forget he's a rookie. He doesn't over-celebrate after a big play, doesn't spiral after a mistake, and doesn't seem to let the noise, good or bad, get in the way of his preparation. That's a trait veteran quarterbacks struggle to master, and here he is displaying it before he's even unpacked all his stuff in Cleveland. Still, the locker room reality is worth watching. NFL players are professionals, but they're also human, and watching someone else walk into generational wealth before proving it over time can create subtle tension. There's talk that a couple of veterans, especially those on the tail ends of their careers, feel the move disrupts the natural pecking order. They've been grinding for years without anything close to this kind of security, and now the playbook, the media attention, and even the ownership spotlight are laser-focused on Sanders. It's not hard to imagine quiet frustrations simmering if the team hits a rough patch. That's where leadership comes in, and ironically, it's now partly Sanders' job to make sure those tensions don't fracture the team chemistry. That's a heavy ask for someone who was in college less than a year ago. The coaching staff seems aware of the stakes. They're designing not just plays, but an entire infrastructure around Sanders' style. Offensive schemes are being tweaked, the tempo adjusted to suit his comfort zone, and even practice drills are subtly shifting to prioritize his decision-making scenarios. It's a smart investment strategy, but also one that doubles down on the all-in feeling. You're not just paying the man, you're building an empire around him. And empires, as history has taught us, can either stand for centuries or collapse dramatically when the foundation cracks. What's fascinating is how the public perception has split right down the middle. Half the fan base is walking around like they just got the football equivalent of a winning lottery ticket. They're imagining Sanders jerseys in every household, playoff runs, and maybe, just maybe, that elusive Lombardi trophy finally coming to Cleveland. The other half is cautious, the veterans of heartbreak who've learned not to get too attached to the idea of a savior until he's actually delivered the goods. That split isn't unique to Cleveland, but the size of this deal amplifies it. The skeptics aren't just doubting his talent. They're doubting the decision-making process behind the deal. And in a way, that's part of what makes this so captivating. Everyone's invested in the outcome, even people who don't care about the Browns, because we all want to know whether this is a stroke of genius or a headline we'll laugh about 5 years from now. And speaking of the rest of the league, this move doesn't just affect Cleveland. The quarterback market has been spiraling upward for years, but a rookie locking in $250 million this early? That's a paradigm shift. Agents are licking their chops. GMs are sweating. Every promising young quarterback's next negotiation just got a new floor, and it's about $100 million higher than it was a week ago. This isn't just about Sanders. It's about the financial ripple effect that's going to hit the league like a tidal wave. The irony is that Sanders himself seems completely unfazed by all of it. By all accounts, he's not strutting around facility like he owns the place. He's not throwing wild parties or buying fleets of sports cars, at least not publicly. Instead, he's back in the film room, working through defenses, and already moving on to the next challenge. That's the kind of thing that makes coaches and owners feel like they made the right call. Still, the reality is unavoidable. One game does not define a career. There's an entire season ahead, with defenses that will adapt, injuries that can happen, and the natural ups and downs of life in the NFL. Sanders will face games where nothing works, where he'll have to claw for every yard, where mistakes will test his resilience. The Browns are betting that in those moments, he'll still be the same poised leader they saw against the Panthers. And if he is, then maybe this gamble won't just pay off. It'll redefine what's possible for rookies who truly are generational talents. But the margin for error is slim. In sports, hype is fragile. 1 or 2 bad games, and the same people singing your praises will be questioning your paycheck. That's the balancing act Sanders now has to master, thriving under the kind of microscope most players don't face until years into their careers. Cleveland's future is now inextricably tied to his performance, his health, and his ability to command a locker room full of men, many of whom have far more NFL experience than he does. It's a high-wire act, but if he keeps his balance, the payoff could be historic. And maybe that's what makes this story so addictive to watch. Whether you love the move or think it insane, you can't deny that it's injected a level of drama, excitement, and uncertainty into the NFL season that wasn't there before. For the Browns, it's either the start of a new era or the setup for the most expensive what-if in franchise history. For Sanders, it's the beginning of a career that now comes with both unimaginable security and equally unimaginable expectations. The first chapter was impressive, but the rest of the book is still unwritten.